obviously thought we were going to have a little gaslighting, but certainly didn't think we were going to see a flamethrower by any means. But this was certainly just a practice of what was needed to satisfy a constitutional requirement to present a budget. I think we heard on the way down at the elevator that this budget will certainly be dead on arrival, and that is absolutely correct. The Illinois Democrats are not going to be passing this budget for sure. We just heard very recently that a $3.2 billion deficit, but you can't all of a sudden raise the overall budget to $55 billion, so you can't raise it by $2 billion, and then cut cost all on paper and have that be all of a sudden balanced. We are here as the Illinois House Republicans to expose and oppose this kind of policy framework, and we're going to do just that. This is certainly nothing in here that is going to benefit Illinois families. It's not going to help Illinois businesses. You talked about, this is, going to promote businesses to come. I didn't see anything in here that was going to lower our corporate tax rate. I didn't see anything that's going to lower our Illinois franchise tax. I didn't see any good policy that was going to do that at all. But I certainly did hear a lot of political rhetoric that is certainly going to put him on the stage for a presidential race, which is unfortunate because ethically, we shouldn't be having political speeches under the dome. Noreen? Oh, can we move that?
Yeah, we just have to pick it up. We can't slide it. Those were our instructions per Rob. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for taking the time. What we just heard, and this is not a flashback, but what we just heard was the presentation of the largest budget in the history of the state of Illinois. I think you heard that last year. I think you heard that the year before that and the year before that. In fact, this budget would spend about over $55 billion, so over $2 billion more than last year. Somehow or another, the $3.2 billion deficit we were looking at about 36 hours ago has magically disappeared. The governor talked about magic beans. Well, I want to tell you, we got some magic beans going on here, folks. In just the last 6 years, we have had a 36% increase in our budget in the state of Illinois. That is incredulous and certainly unsustainable. Were there some good things that we were able to decipher in the budget? Yes, none of which came up on the House floor, but certainly the governor is proposing doing away with the HBIA for undocumented folks here in the state of Illinois, and that would save a considerable amount of money. That's for the population between 42 and 64. There is no comment, however, on cutting costs for the entire population and saving that money so that we can at least put a portion of that into health care benefits for our citizens. And yet we continue to protect the undocumented at the cost of our citizens. I think it's absolutely totally unfair. Lots of gimmicks going on in this budget, but that's nothing new. I don't see that this budget even sees the light of day with the Democratic supermajority. So as is always the case, our work begins now. And I hope that we can begin in earnest and that our colleagues on the other side of the aisle will open their eyes and look at their children and their grandchildren and think, what's the right thing to do for them? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Ryan Spain, State Representative from the 73rd District. I live in Peoria. This was a highly political speech that we listened to today. And you have to wonder, Governor Pritzker sees himself speaking to the nation, and I don't know that anyone is listening. Illinois continues to show itself as a state that is struggling with challenges for economic growth, population loss, high taxes, and yet we continue to spend more and more. And that's the record that Governor Pritzker will have to reconcile with the people of the United States of America as he seeks to launch his presidential campaign for 2028. I would say, though, he is not going to be running against Donald Trump in 2028. And he needs to understand that as soon as possible, because there's a lot at risk for the state of Illinois by continuing to play the part of antagonizer to the President of the United States. We have tremendous dollars that flow from the federal government to the state of Illinois, responsible for public safety, healthcare, education, and I don't want to be involved with the type of constant fighting and bickering with the President of the United States. The governor seems to be of political benefit to him. So we need to move forward. I'm glad that we've reached this point of transition now where the budget is handed to the legislature, and we need to be sensitive to a number of different things. If Governor Pritzker is running for president, we are concerned what sort of ticking time bombs may he leave behind as he moves on to his other ambitions that the taxpayers of Illinois are going to have to deal with at some point. So that's the first thing. Second, the budget includes, as Leader Hammond said, we were looking at a $3.2 billion deficit just days ago. That deficit has now been cut in half with very rosy revenue projections from the Governor's Office of Management and Budget that are baked into his budget proposal. We need to examine and understand those projections. And then we need to look at these budget gimmicks that are being imposed, whether it's for tax delinquent payments, robbing dollars out of the road fund for a one-year pause is something that we are certainly not supportive of. And so unpacking those budget gimmicks are going to be really important. And it matters a lot because one thing that I didn't hear the governor say today, and he needs to look at the artificial supermajority of Democrats that sit in the legislature, is a promise that I will veto any budget that includes tax increases. He didn't say that. And so it leaves legislators then with the ability to come up with new revenue enhancements, tax increases, and we stand opposed to further taxing the state of Illinois. We are taxed to the max. And so the governor needed to step forward and be crystal clear today. And in addition to all the other things said, I'm disappointed that that was not part of the speech.
Absolutely.
I'm only here in my second term, and the one thing I have learned very quickly is the term balanced is very fluid, along with many things in Springfield. We have not had a truly balanced budget for a long time in Illinois. The fact of the matter is that even with the revisions to the fiscal year 2026 revenue projections, we still have a budget deficit. It is a fact that spending has increased every year J.B. Pritzker has been in office, and yet population continually declines, as long as you don't count the illegal immigrants. It is also a fact that the administration has continued to create new programs knowing full well that there was an expiration date to the ARPA funds propping up the state government. The governor wants to talk about business in Illinois as if we are the destination state, and yet year after year we see major companies who have a long history in Illinois packing up and leaving due to high costs. It is worth noting that many of these businesses Pritzker mentioned today are Chinese communist-owned EV battery makers and electric vehicle companies that are posting losses per unit by the thousands, even despite having millions of dollars of subsidies poured into them. The financial problems we are facing were not created in a vacuum. All of us standing here today sounded the alarm last year about where we were headed. We warned about the reckless spending and how it would end with budget deficits and create long-term financial problems for our state. Of course, those warnings were ignored. Today, we didn't hear a single thing about long-term solutions, only Band-Aid fixes. So let's talk about where we all know this budget process is headed, because year after year, it seems to be the same story. The governor comes here and gives his speech with rosy projections, and then the real budget process begins. It is a process that happens behind closed doors and with only a select few people allowed to attend those meetings. It's not only Republicans who are shut out, but a lot of rank and file Democrats as well. After this week, the appropriations committees will meet week after week, spending hours listening to testimony on line item requests, asking questions to department heads and making suggestions that will ultimately never end up in the budget. Then we will make all the way to Memorial Day. We'll make our way there, and we'll finally get to see a 3,000 plus page budget that looks very different from what the governor talked about today. And typically those differences aren't improvements, just different spending or even more spending. We will be asked to vote on something that we've barely seen with omnibus spending, and then of course chastised for not voting in favor of it by the speaker. This is a horrendous process. We all know it. And if I may, let's briefly think back to last year. We had a deficit last year, about $800 million. Remember how over a dozen of the Democrats didn't even vote for the budget because it was so bad. They didn't want to be on the hook for all the tax and fee increases for ridiculous spending last year, as it then impacts your cost of living. And it should be different this year. But last year, they literally had to suspend the House rules to vote on it for a third time to get it across the finish line. It is time we put the needs of all Illinois residents first. If the Department of Government Efficiency can identify $55 billion in waste in DC in just a few weeks, I think we can identify enough fraud and waste to do a better job managing taxpayer money here in Illinois and shrink this budget hole. As a matter of fact, we here at the Illinois Freedom Caucus believe that in a matter of days, we could trim $3 to $4 billion off the budget. Illegal immigrant spending, government waste, woke green energy programs, and overpaid politicians. That is just the start. Why are Democrats so against any kind of oversight of government? We see this at the national level with all the derangement about DOGE, and we see it here in Illinois. For years, Republicans have proposed ideas like forensic audits to get a better handle on state spending. We would love to see an Illinois version of DOGE here. There's no denying that we need it. Any state government that can unashamedly vote for tax increases with suspended rules at 4 a.m. is in need of a little oversight. I wouldn't trust these people to run the neighborhood ice cream truck, let alone our government. The people the Democrats are hurting the most are the very ones they claim to care about. If we went through the Illinois budget the way DOGE is combing through the federal budget, think of all the kinds of low-income homes that would benefit from increased funding in healthcare, school choice, and other state services. The reason the Democrats refuse to support accountability measures is because they want to continue to use the government funds for the cause nearest and dearest to their hearts, their own reelection. If we all work together towards common sense solutions, I believe we can win for the people we are elected to serve. My message to the majority party is this: we are willing to pull up a chair to the table to work together.
Recently, I was appointed to Republican spokesman on the House Immigration and Human Services Committee. But first, I want to address Governor Pritzker's juvenile attacks directed at President Trump. You know, parts of Governor's own party want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. And to call Trump and Republicans Nazis is dangerous political grandstanding and will only incite the violence he claims to condemn. But this is about J.B. Pritzker's misguided aspirations to be the next president. He knew we were going to have a budget issue this year, yet in 2024, Governor Pritzker and the Democrat majority added more than $2 billion in state and local spending on illegal immigrants. This spending is a result of the sanctuary state policies, which is the subject of a recent U.S. Department of Justice lawsuit against Illinois. This is something we didn't hear much about today, and it's very possible that Illinois Democrats will cause the state to lose significant federal funding if they continue to prop up this unconstitutional law just to spite the Trump administration. Apparently, according to J.B. Pritzker today, if you think criminals, rapists, and drug dealers who are here illegally should be deported, you're somehow comparable to a Nazi. His comments on that today were frankly disgusting. The Democrats were destroyed nationally in elections just a few months ago, in part because they doubled down on the idea of letting these criminal illegals take a free ride on the taxpayer dime. You would think they would have gotten the hint. Instead, Governor Pritzker is literally proposing a budget today that still spends hundreds of millions of dollars on illegals instead of prioritizing the needs of our own citizens. And they are continuing to pour money into programs for illegal immigrants. This budget is a parlor trick of epic proportions. The vast majority of Americans support President Donald Trump's efforts to secure our southern borders and deport criminals who are here illegally. The governor and the Democrat Party in the House are out of touch with the majority of American people.
Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel. And while you're at it, please leave us a comment. Thank you for watching.